Welcome to Handed Down, where we celebrate and investigate traditional songs. I'm Jenny Shaw, sometimes singer and at all times folk song fan. Today's song is a beloved ballad from Ireland. As I roved out on a bright May morning, also known as The Deluded Lover. It's a song that I've been singing since my student days, and in many ways it's a standard folk song. It's a conversation between a man and a woman, a tale of betrayal and lost love, all wrapped up in a beautiful tune. But some of the verses are confusing. We're not quite sure what's going on at times. And for me, this means looking for lost versions, probably a longer ballad that was worn down over time. But alas, no. This song is strangely elusive. There's really only one known source for it, and I've never had so much difficulty in tracing a song. Nonetheless, I have persisted and had some partial success, so plenty to talk about today. The song itself is beautiful. The tune is slow and sad, weaving in and out of a minor key with wistful, hopeful pushes into the major, ending on the fifth, which leaves us in suspense at the end. And I think it's the lack of closure in the tune, matching the lack of closure for the song's characters, is the big part of its appeal. Both the tune and the words tend to run around in your head for a while, while your brain tries to process it, so you'll be singing it all day. And as for the words, at first glance, it seems to be a straightforward song of a jilted lover, but an element of mystery quickly sneaks in. We get very little backstory. The man seems to have married another woman, but for her land rather than for love. And then the song finishes with a verse that could only really come from a soldier away from home and pining for his wife. It makes no sense at all, and it's led to some creative theories, though it's probably a floating verse, even though this version of it doesn't seem to appear in any other known song. And what is all that business about the lassie who had the land?
As I roved out on a bright May morning to view the meadows and flowers gay.
That's the voice of Bridget Tunney, whose family is the only source of this song. She and her son Paddy and her brother Michael Gallagher are responsible for all the collected versions. Michael said that he got the song from his Aunt Bridget, who lived in Donegal, Ireland, so literally it comes to us from one woman. As a result, we know no different versions and only minor differences in tune. Andy Irvine, who recorded it with Planxty, said this: Paddy described it as dating back to the days of the famine, when any bit of property at all was enough to tempt a man to jilt his true love in favour of the lassie with the land. In other words, it is a story about land hunger. Land hunger is a term that technically means a greed for land as a commodity, but, like all things, is not quite so straightforward, especially when there is a link to physical hunger. And of course, there have been times in Ireland's history when agricultural labourers were simply not able to earn enough to feed their families. This state of affairs was caused by landholders who would let and sublet land or put it in the hand of agents, and it led to very complex layers of ownership and stewardship, each layer extracting wealth from the same land, leaving practically nothing for the people who actually worked it. Those at the bottom of the system were hard-pressed anyway, and when times became harder because of maybe population growth or falling grain prices or crop failure, they were the ones who paid the highest price, and it forced them to rent just tiny pieces of land and often just for one season at a time, at inflated prices, of course, on which they could grow subsistence crops such as potatoes to attempt to feed themselves and their children. So, while this song presents a tragic situation driven by land hunger, it is really a mild tragedy compared to the many stories of starvation and disease. To muse on lost love has to be something of a privilege compared to burying your children, for example. And against this background of history, this song feels quite sanitised, and I didn't expect to find that. It is really a story that wouldn't offend a middle-class audience. And this song is about class. While neither of the separated lovers seem to be the hard-pressed rural poor, there is a class difference between the jilted woman and the lassie who has the land. The lassie who helped to elevate the man to a different social grade. He's a landlord now, and he's secure against any hardship. There may be other differences too. The lassie with the land is very likely to be a Protestant, English or Anglo-Irish. You peel away the top layer of this song, and it becomes much more complex, much more political. A dialogue between a man and a woman, a rural setting, a difference in class, and roving out in the morning are all features of this song, but they're also characteristic of a much older type of song altogether, the pastorelle. And in fact, it was Paddy Tunney who first made this link between the pastorelle and As I Roved Out. So what is a pastorelle? Well, a pastorelle is one of the many song genres developed by the troubadours in the 12th and the 13th centuries. These poet-musicians plied their trades right across southern France, particularly the Occitan-speaking regions of Provence and Aquitaine, and their influence eventually spread across medieval Europe, including northern France, where the pastorelle became especially popular. A pastorelle usually tells the story of a conversation between a knight and a working-class woman, often a shepherdess. And the setting is always in the countryside, in the spring, and quite often opens with references to flowers. And if this sounds familiar, well, I'm sure you know many folk songs that start this way. We've probably got the pastorelle to thank for familiar songs such as Sweet Primroses and the somewhat more dubious to modern ears, 17 Come Sunday. In addition to the flowery openings, these songs, like the pastorelle, include a difference in class or power, some banter, and more than a hint of sexual harassment. Alas, there was no Me Too in medieval times. Pastorelles were very sexy songs, but consent seemed to be optional. So here is a verse from the first known pastorelle, Lautria Jost und Sebissa. This one is actually fairly tame compared to some of the later songs. There's a lot of banter, and she seems to cool his ardour, or at least get away with saying no. Lautria Jost und Sebissa, tropai pastorem mestiza, de joie de San Masima, si cum filari filina, a pegonelle pelissa, veste camiza trelissa, sot laise causas dalana. But although the fields, the class difference and conversation are all there, As I Roved Out is no more than a distant cousin to the medieval pastorelle. There's none of the lightness, and in its heart it is about star-crossed lovers rather than pretty shepherdesses and upper-class chancers, so we are definitely missing some kind of link here. Now, one candidate for this is the late medieval Scottish pastorelle Robin and Mackin. Robin sat on good green hill, clepping a flock of fay. Mary Mackin said him till, Robin, thou woo on me, ye have the love it loud and still, 3 years, 2 or 3. My dole in dern bod gif thou a dill, doubtless but dread I day. This song was written by a Scottish teacher from Dunfermline, Robert Henryson, and it's the first pastorelle known to have been written in Scotland. Like the troubadour pastorelles, it deals with parted lovers. At the start of the poem, we hear Mary Mackin trying every way she can to woo Robin, but he's not having any of it, and it seems that it's going to break her heart. And then, that very night, he's suddenly overcome with a change of heart, and he goes to her with declarations of love and a proposition. But he's missed his chance. Mackin says, the man who will not when he may, shall have not when he would. And the rest of the poem is about Mackin rejecting Robin, repeatedly, until he retreats sadly with his herd of cows to a wretched place. The link to As I Rove Out is more than a little tenuous here, but it isn't the only link between this song and Scotland. Now, there is a tantalising quote in the Ballad Index notes page for this song, but I've not been able to track down the original, unfortunately. I'll tell you what it says anyway, though. A copy of this song was recently found in Russia by Dr. Urbanov, folded into the diary of a Captain Dougal Fraser, who presumably died at Balaclava in the Crimean War around 1853 as a member of the 93rd Highland Regiment under Sir Colin Campbell, one-time aide-de-camp to the Duke of Wellington. Very tantalising, and I would love to see that version. In the 1974 book, The Irish Song Tradition, Sean O'Boyle has this to say about As I Roved Out. In part, it is the voice of land-hungry Ireland. But where does the word lassie come from? It seems to me that the Irish ballad may just be an abbreviated Scottish ballad that would explain lassie, and may mean that the land issue, which is central to the Irish versions, is preserved because of Irish land hunger of the 19th century. The singer's complaint that his friends conveyed me to yon church, and his lips said yes at their request, does not survive in the Irish versions we have because the land itself is sufficient motivation, well understood by Irish listeners. The last verse, so seemingly out of place in the Irish versions, is made clear by the Scottish versions. But O gin the king would gie command, through Italy, through France and Spain, to every married man to forsake his own wife, and return back to his own sweetheart again. So, in other words, the Scottish version ends in quite the opposite way from As I Roved Out. The narrator doesn't want an end to war, but a call to war, so that he can leave his wife and be with his true love. But unfortunately, I've only been able to get this material from a secondary source, and I've not managed to track down any Scottish song similar to the one that's quoted. And if anyone listening has a copy of the Irish Song Tradition by Sean O'Boyle, which is of course out of print now, I would really love to hear from you. Between us, we might be able to solve this mystery. Well, I don't really know how to sum up this beautiful, maddening song. Despite all my research effort over the last few months, I'm not very much wiser, and it's the first time a song has eluded me. Is it Irish or is it Scottish? Is it a descendant of the medieval pastorelle? Is it about love or land hunger, or war, or class, or all of these things. Maybe this song has deluded me. But when all's said and done, it remains one of my most beloved songs, and I don't think I'll ever be tired of singing it. As I rode out on a bright May morning to view the meadows and the flowers gay, whom should I spy but my own true lover, as she sat under yon willow tree. I took off my hat and I did salute her. I did salute her most courageously, as she turned around, well, the tears fell from her, saying, "False young man, you have deluded me." A diamond ring I owned I gave you, a diamond ring to wear on your right hand. But the vows you made, love, you went and broke them, and married the lassie that has the land. If I married the lassie that has the land, my love, it's that I will rue till the day I die, when misfortune calls, sure no man can shun it. I was blindfolded, I will not deny. And at night, when I go to my bed of slumber, the thoughts of my true love come in my mind. And when I turn around to embrace my darling, instead of gold, sure it's brass I find.